one morning after my son was potty trained, and he was like no longer wore a diaper at night, so everything was fine, right? He was potty trained. But in the morning, one morning, he woke up indignantly and he sat up in straight in bed and said, "Who peed in my bed?" And all the other kids laughed and they said, "You did." But he couldn't believe it. He was potty trained. Ruth Elliott-Hilsdon here. Some interesting information for you today on a subject called denial. Subscribe so that I know that you're here, okay? Click on the bell. You'll be notified when I have new videos. What is denial? We're talking about denial, which is, it can be looked at as kind of how we try to shield ourselves from feeling bad by not seeing the truth. It's kind of like a coping mechanism that we go through as a survival technique, kind of, that we kind of learn in childhood, and it's to shield us from unpleasant feelings and experiencing. And basically, it's kind of like, well, being an inventor. When I was a kid, I was a great inventor, inventing excuses for others when they ignored my needs, or um, and I would like I'd think to myself, um, well, I guess they're just too busy with other things that are much more important than me, and and I'd think to myself, well, I guess I need to learn how to do things for myself, even find love. And so I was also good at inventing reasons for people's anger and bad behavior. Like, I'd think to myself, I just need to be quieter, more agreeable, and never need anything from anyone and learn to stay out of the way. So that was something that I did to, as a coping mechanism for being ignored or not getting my needs met. And I'd also think of reasons why it was suffering was actually a good thing for you. Um, and probably I'm supposed to learn a lesson from all this. It's helping me grow. It's helping me learn patience and good character, learning to forgive and being tolerant of others, and also I'll have lots of examples of how not to treat other people in the future. So it deny and when we're in denial, it kind of like we accept false beliefs about like who we are and why things happen. When we're in denial, sometimes we can resign ourselves to this fate of like other people's being in charge of our lives, and we wallow in our misery, feeling victimized and helpless. Denial is kind of like a coin with two sides. One is shame and the other is blame. When we don't want to feel shame, we blame. It was his fault that I was such a loser. And whatever, like with my son, who peed in my bed. Of course, what do you expect from a 2-year-old? So this is like, everyone makes mistakes, right? So denial is kind of like a mess that we ignore. It's kind of like when something gets spilled on the floor. If you drop, say, some egg or something on the floor, if you wipe it up right away, there's no damage. But if you don't pick it up right away, if you don't clean up your messes when they're freshly dirty, then you'll end up tracking tracking it into other parts of your house, and it'll get other things dirty as well. So denial, actually, it only makes us think that the problem doesn't exist, but it really still does. We're not seeing the truth. It's kind of like a donut tire when you get a flat. It can get you someplace just temporarily so that you don't feel quite so, horrible, but in the end you have to change your tire. Now, as far as tires go, the AAA recommends that, I have a quote here. It says, driving on it longer than 50 miles can potentially damage other car parts, including the transmission. So if you drive on a donut tire for too long, then it can damage other parts. Just like when um, the purpose of denial is like a stopgap measure, and it works for a little while to, as a survival device to shield us from pain, we think. But once we see that it's not helping us and it's only hurting us to continue to use it, we can decide to finally make a real change, see the truth, and get a new tire. Something that will get us to where we need to go without further damage to our lives and our drives. And our drives are towards, everyone wants a good life, but we all go about it in different ways. And some people try to get their own way by blaming other people for their mistakes, and blame, and then shame. They feel so ashamed that they don't want to try anything or stick their necks out. So the moral of the story is, when things go whoops or ouch or ugh, don't shove it under the rug. Face it, take care of the ouch, and you'll have a happier, cleaner experience in life. A lot of times we get stuck in a rut, in a mental rut. We get stuck into, like, going over the painful things that either we've done or other people have done. And basically, it's just another thing that keeps us on the hamster wheel of misery in our mind, because our mind is what is driving us to wherever we are going in our lives. So if we're thinking of all the bad things in the past, it's just perpetuating the stuff in the future, because it's continuing that vibe of everything's, horrible. So when I keep going over the painful things in my mind, it's not only a waste of time, but it's a waste of life, that could be spent growing greater love and joy in our garden of experiences. There was a funny story about a guy who lived, he had a backyard full of weeds, and the guy who lived next door to him had this beautiful sculptured lawn in the back with, trimmed with little flower beds, and perfectly manicured, lovely backyard. So he saw the neighbor out there gardening one day, and he went out and he said, "Oh, your yard is so beautiful. Isn't it amazing what the Lord can do?" And so the neighbor said, "Yeah, well, you should have seen it when the Lord had it all to himself." We are in charge of our own mental garden. I love the analogy, because we are like a seed planted in maybe rocky ground, and sometimes we're surrounded by weeds, and the weeds like suck the joy out of us, and they prevent us from seeing our way forward. When we can get a vision of something better, or if we can't stand it anymore, like a seed that instinctively knows how to travel upward, towards the light, even if it's in the darkness and even underneath a rock, maybe. Seeds know that they're supposed to travel up. Something about opposite from gravity or something, and towards the light. So we can make efforts towards beginning our climb upward and find ways towards the light of truth, and that will give us wonderful growth. When we meditate and we have inner discovery, we can get the big picture and begin to see what's going on from above, and then we don't take everything so personally and realize that this is this is the way life is down here on earth for everyone. Everyone has the same struggles of trying to see the bigger picture and find that place of peace where we can relinquish all that stuff. And then we can begin to see ourselves in true perspective, that we're neither better than anyone else or less than anyone else. And then we can treat ourselves with the same dignity that each of us is entitled to. And not just treat ourselves, but treat other people with that same dignity. There's an antidote to all the painful memories when they come up: prayer and love and the joy of God's presence. I, I love that analogy that God is the water and we're just the hose. And sometimes we have this, we see our sink, our dirty sink is kind of like our life. But a lot of times we expect God to do all the work, without allowing his water into every part of us, because they just turned on the water, but they didn't fill their whole sink or fill their whole life with his spirit. Because if we really want to feel clean inside of all of the pain and the guilt and the shame and the anger and the blame that we have carried with us, we have to allow God in every part of our being. Just like we'd have to make sure we expose our sink of our life to every part, with water and maybe a little scrubbing, which would be the effort towards getting the water to every part, the spirit. So it was an interesting thing I thought of this morning. The water may be turned on to some people's lives, but they're not taking advantage of it because they're not allowing themselves to be filled with the light of God's presence throughout every part of them. I just want to encourage you all that there is always an answer to every need that you have. We have that spark of light inside, and God is always there. So I want to encourage you, don't give up the ship.